Well, hi everybody. It's Tope here. I have the privilege of leading Jubilee Church in London, where Adrian Warnock serves as one of our leaders, and he's asked me again to just give some kind of a review of the last conference that I had the privilege of attending. This was the Desiring of God conference, hosted by John Piper, and this was my first time attending that conference. I had obviously heard about it a number of times. I've been blessed by many of the sermons that have come out of it. So this took place then at the end of September. So we're talking about 3 weeks ago, with noted people there like John Piper, Mark Driscoll, Bob Coughlin, Paul Tripp, and Dan Taylor. And so this all I'm going to try to do here is give my impressions of the whole thing, what I felt, what I gained, and hope that this serves you in some way. I think first of all I'll say this: going to Minneapolis, it was good for me to just be able to connect with a number of friends already, not Liz Driscoll and so on, just to be able to connect with them again. Say I get to meet other people. It was a huge privilege for me to get to meet John Piper, whom I had met a long time ago, but just to meet him in a much more particular setting, such as that was a real good thing. Well, right off the bat, let me say that I loved the conference very much. I was very blessed by it. I learned a lot from it. So we're talking here then about 3,000 people, more than 3,000 people in attendance, very well organized. And I'd say this: the use of the volunteers was exemplary, and very encouraging to see that churches can really organize themselves, ministries can organize themselves so well. Well, some of the things that jumped out at me from this conference were, I'd say this: their commitment to learning. You just taking a sharp, intake of breath as you see the bookstore, and their commitment to that angle of everything was really impressive. Just huge thing with, volumes of books. I'd say that I was really impressed by the mixture of the attendees, males and females, and just to see loads of men, but also the women poring over, doctrinally heavy books was really something impressive to see. And then so many young people there as well. So that right across the spectrum, lots of people from different backgrounds as well, I would say. I think that for me, some of the highlights were certainly the worship. I guess I didn't know totally what to expect, and you draw certain conclusions, and I guess some of my conclusions were wrong, and I'm glad to see that. Really, I would now to help you in this. My background, okay, I am charismatic. I am reformed in theology and charismatic. So you go into our meetings, we would have truth there, set to music and appropriately expressed with dancing and clapping, and just exalting the Lord, not just with the words that we sing, but with our whole body worshiping. Well, this is what also I found at the conference. I thought that the music was obviously very well put together. They really worked very hard at that, and everything just hung so well together. The style of the music wasn't totally what I'm used to, or in that sense, my preference. The choice of songs were songs that I knew and hymns that I knew, not totally altogether my preference again. But in the end, the question would be this: did I worship? Did I have those moments of being lost in awe and joy? Yes, I most definitely, absolutely did. As they sung their hymns, you can just imagine 3,000 people, voices raised, shouting and singing, "He can move the mountain, he is mighty to save, he is mighty to save." It was wonderful. They even sang a Latino song at one point, which just said to me their awareness to be as diverse and inclusive in all that they do. I was extremely impressed, and I went away thinking, you know what, there's a lot to learn from this kind of setup. There was a whole lot of freedom. People stood to worship, people raised their hands to worship, people applauded at the end of some of the songs. And so perhaps whatever was in my own mind, that it would be very perhaps staid and maybe solemn and silent. It wasn't that. You had those moments at the appropriate times, and you had those who were really, really going for it. So I loved it very much. Well, all that set us up nicely for the conference itself, and that is the sermons that would come, the talks that would come. The title of the conference, The Power of Words and the Wonder of God. The power of words and the wonder of God. It has a ring to it. And when you go to listen to Piper's talk, you see how important that is. You realize actually some of the effort that goes into just pulling out a title like that. Well, first up was Sinclair Ferguson. You might know of his ministry and know of him a little bit. Very bright theologian, a Scotsman living in Columbia, Carolina, speaking on James chapter 3 verses 1 to 12, and he did a very good job. The structure of his talk, the way that he brought it across, was just really very outstanding, and basically saying, look, James's concern is for our maturity. And looking at what he did, he went to chapter 3, worked his way through the 12 verses, and then stepped back to look at that chapter and what he was speaking about in context of the whole book, and then stepped back even further to look at the whole thing in the context of the gospel. Very good talk. I'll tell you what I learned from this. He said, look, there are two types of people that struggle with the tongues. There are those who speak too much, too spontaneous with their things that they have to say and almost never ending. And then on the other hand, you have those who are very silent and do not speak much. Those who are, if you like, find it constitutionally difficult, as he put it, to speak up. And he says both need to tame their tongue. See, now for someone like me, I'd never really thought about it that way. I've tended to think about it, well, the person that needs to tame their tongue is the one that speaks too much. But he says, no. Even the person who is perpetually silent and actually needs to learn to speak up. That the one who speaks too much to learn to bridle, to be restrained, and to pull back, to learn to be silent. And then having learned to be silent, through that silence, to learn to speak the right words, godly words, words that build up. But the individual whose tendency is to be silent, for them to find the boldness from the gospel to speak up about the gospel, thereby breaking down barriers that hold them back. Well, with Sinclair Ferguson, what you're getting here is a man that has his conversational style of speaking. You're not getting the overt demonstration of passion. But I'll tell you what you are getting. You are getting truth clearly delivered. That's Sinclair Ferguson.